After realizing that Red Eye's Soul makes FTKs more consistent in Red Eyes, I started doing testing and looking at a bunch of different deck lists. I ended up coming up with 3 decks that utilize the FTK. Now, when I say FTK, I don't necessarily mean that you're killing them on the first turn. A lot of these do kill the opponent during the draw phase. However, draw phase kill does not have the same ring to it as FTK, so I will be referring to it as an FTK. Now, I do have 3 different deck lists, so I will be leaving timestamps in the video so you can pick and choose which of the deck lists you prefer and take a look at each of them individually. I did also want to mention that these builds are more proof of concept than they are like the end-all be-all perfect version of this FTK. FTKs can always be built on and they can be made better, so if you figure out a better way to build this deck, please build on this. I'm going to continue to build on it myself. I just wanted to get these deck lists out there so people can look at them and try them out. So our first deck list here is a 50 card version, and in order to pull off the FTK in this deck, you're going to need some version of this setup, which I'm showing on screen right now. Now, what's important about this setup is you do need to get to Inferno Fire Blast in order to pull it off, and unfortunately Inferno Fire Blast is not currently searchable. So the goal of this deck is to cycle through Yugiohs. You want to summon this card out as much as possible, and we're playing 3 of it because we can make 3 of it very easy and very effectively. Unfortunately, unless you're able to utilize Yugioh or other draw cards such as Knock Division in order to get into your Inferno Fire Blast, you won't be able to pull off the FTK. In that situation, we are still playing Dragon Link, so we'll be able to end on some kind of a negate board, whether that be Baroness de Fleur, Borreload Savage Dragon, or just ending on like a Griffin Rider and like a Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spheres. Ultimately, the purpose is just if you can't pull off the FTK, you still are in the game, and that makes this a fairly effective variant. Now, for this deck, we are playing triple Black Metal Dragon and 1 Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. This is a very good engine in Dragon Link to begin with, but with this, we're also able to search our Red Eyes Spirit, as well as our Red Eyes Tune and our Red Eyes Soul. Now, you don't want these to be in hand, however, if you search these and you have Yugioh, you can cycle that back into the deck. So if you organize your chain links as Yugioh Chainlink 1, Black Metal Dragon Chainlink 2, add this back, it just gives you an additional +1 off of your Yugiohs, which is a very effective tactic in order to get further into your deck. We're also playing triple Red Rose Dragon and 1 Roxy Rose. This is a very effective engine to get us our negates, as well as set up our Yugioh. If we get this plus Rites of Armesia, it gets us Baroness plus our first Yugioh on its own. So, very good engine, highly recommend playing this. Then we're running a small rocket engine of just double tracer, 1 caliber, 1 recharger, and 1 rocket synchron. After that, we're running the obvious package of Black Dragon Collapse Serpent and White Dragon Wyvern Buster to go with our Chaos Space. Once again, it's just a very easy draw engine in order to get into our deck. Then we're running triple Aquamancer and 1 Wandering Griffin Rider. We can use this, we might as well. Plus it's like 2 cards on field no matter what, which gets us further into our Yugioh plays. After that, we're running 1 Alpsarautor Dragon just to search into our rockets, as well as 2 Knock Division. This is a draw card as well as an extender, so it fits in this deck perfectly. And we're also running 1 Tempest Dragon Ruler of Storms. This is not just an extender in this deck, this is also a target with our small world, so we can go ahead and banish something like Red Rose Dragon, banish Tempest, and then search our Black Metal Dragon. After that, the last of our monsters are going to be Red Eyes Toon Dragon, Red Eyes Soul, and Speed Burst Dragon. These are necessary in order to pull off our FTK. We're using Speed Burst and Red Eyes Soul as our fusion materials, and our Red Eyes Toon Dragon to send off of our Meteor Black Comet Dragon in order to do that last bit of extra damage in order to win the game. Now for our spells, we're running triple Inferno Fire Blast, double Rites of Armesia, 1 Journey of Destiny, and 1 Dracoback Steed. And then we are using triple Quick Launch, triple Small World, triple Chaos Space. All of this is pretty self-explanatory. Small World searches your deck, Quick Launch is an extender, this is used for the FTK, this sets up a negate, and this is additional pluses plus draws. For our one-ofs, we are playing Boot Sector Launch, Dragon Ravine, and Basil Rose Shot. These are necessary for our combos, as well as 1-for-1 in order to get even quicker into our Black Metal Dragon, Foolish Burial as just a generically good extender, Called by the Grave in order to stop hand traps, and our Red Eyes Fusion to enable our FTK, and finally our Red Eye Spirit, once again, a necessary piece for our FTK. For our extra deck, we have Meteor Black Comet Dragon. This is the only fusion that you're going to be running. It's necessary for your FTK and kind of the whole point of the deck. Then we're running Baroness de Fleur and Savage Dragon. We're using these for the same reasons. These are to set up a negate in order to prevent your opponent from hand trapping you, as well as ensuring that your opponent can't use something like Chalice or Infinite Impermanence in order to stop your FTK, or your draw phase kill, whatever you really want to call it. Shooting Riser Dragon is just here as a possible monster to make with Red Rose Dragon and a level 4, in order to enable the Red Rose Dragon and get further into our Yugioh plays. We're running Boral Sword and Triple Yugioh. Boral Sword's very obvious, it's just here for going second. If we can't FTK our opponent, we might as well just play Dragon Link going second and kill him that way. And Triple Yugioh, you can and well make Triple Yugioh. You absolutely need to run 3 of this card. Now we're running 1 Crystron Halqifibrax. This is used for a lot of our combos, and also you can use this to summon Red Rose Dragon, and then use Red Rose Dragon as a synchro material to summon out your Roxy Rose. This doesn't have to be normal summon, so if we summon it off of our Halq, it does the trick just fine. Then we're using 1 Romulus, 1 Anaconda, 1 Whelp. These are all just combo pieces, and we're running Heavenly Spheres as something else to end on if we fail to pull off our FTK. Then we're also using 1 Pisty and 1 Striker Dragon. Now, down here at the bottom, I left some additional options for cards that you can play if you want to change things around. Now, the most interesting thing that I found was Griffin, Curious, and Cherubini. This enables you to be able to send your Inferno Fire Blast and then reset it. You send it off of Curious and you reset it off of Griffin. However, I wasn't able to figure out a really consistent way in order to pull this off in this deck. You might be able to use it in a different version of this deck, or you might be able to incorporate some kind of secondary engine to make this consistent. But if you can figure out a way to incorporate these 3 cards, you can make this FTK much, much more consistent. I also have 1 additional Verte Anaconda and a Red Eyes Dragoons down here. You can run a second Verte Anaconda if your opponent's smart and they wait for the Verte Anaconda to use something like Effect Veiler. You can go into a second one and use the second one. However, in order to do that, you would need to run 2 Red Eyes Fusions. And Dragoon is down here if you want to switch out the tune for a regular Red Eyes and then run a Dark Magician. It just gives you more utility. I've also got Exploder Rocket Dragon and Magna Rocket. Increasing the rocket count is not a bad idea, and specifically, Exploder Rocket Dragon has a lot of utility in this deck because it's a level 7, so you can summon it off of Quick Launch or Boot Sector Launch, and then use Red Rose Dragon in order to sink into your Baroness, and that will trigger the Red Rose Dragon. Some other options I have here, if you want to run Rites of Armesia in place of the other Called by the Grave, or just have another Rite of Armesia in order to make your deck a little bit more consistent in terms of running through hand traps, that's a really good idea. You could also use Instant Fusion the same way. I also have Super Poly. If you can mess with the extra deck a little bit, you can use Super Poly pretty effectively in this deck, and Swib Draw is the last card I have here. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to incorporate some extra draw engines into this deck. We are running a 50-card variant to make our opening hands consistent, but once we start going into our Yugioh plays, the deck becomes much more consistent at that point, and if we can draw into draw cards, it would enable us to get into our Inferno Fire Blast much quicker. But that's pretty much it for this deck list. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So for our next variant, we are playing a 60-card deck here. You'll notice that the deck looks extremely similar to our previous one. However, this is a different build because we're using a completely different win condition. We're using Rapid Trigger alongside Red Eyes Burn instead of using our Inferno Fire Blast. And in order to pull off this FTK, we're going to need some combination of the following cards. Now, this deck is actually the most consistent variant I'm going to show. Despite the fact that we need more cards in order to pull off the FTK, all of the cards individually are searchable and highly accessible in this deck. As a result, we can play 60 cards because we don't want to draw cards like Red Eyes Toon Dragon. and this deck actually plays the same amount of necessary pieces as our previous 50 card build. We simply just take out the Inferno Fire Blast for an additional Red Eyes Toon Dragon, Rapid Trigger, and Red Eyes Burn. As a result, we end up with a more consistent deck that's able to pull off the FTK, or draw face kill, a lot more consistently. Before I get into the deck list, I did also want to give a shout out to Revolver Reigns, who pointed out this alternate win condition in the comment section of my last video. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I tested it, absolutely loved it. This is my favorite version of the FTK that I've played so far. So to start things off, we have triple Black Metal Dragon, very important card in order to search our Red Eyes Burn, and Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon in order to combo with it. Then we also have our Red Rose Dragon, one White Rose Dragon, and one Roxy Rose Dragon. This is once again for our combo with Aquamancer. We see Red Rose Dragon combined with Aquamancer, and we get our Yugioh alongside a free negate. We are also playing the White Rose Dragon here because I wanted an additional target for Red Rose Dragon, but I wasn't liking 2 Roxy Rose, and this card can special summon itself from hand, so it is an extender. Then we're playing triple Aquamancer, one Wandering Griffin Rider. Griffin Rider also, hilariously, a good extender on its own in this deck, since you can just special summon it from hand. And Romulus actually requires 2 dragons or winged beast monsters, so this card can actually just be a generic extender in this deck. Then we are running one White Dragon and one Black Dragon, and we are running a significantly larger rocket package than we were in the previous build. We're running triple Tracer this time, one Caliber, one Recharger, one Magna Rocket, and one Rocket Synchron, alongside our honorary rocket Apsarouter. Then we are also running one copy of Supreme King Darkworm. I'm not a huge fan of this card, however, our ability to send it off of Dragon Shrine and then use it as a material alongside Red Rose Dragon to proc our Red Rose Dragon is very useful, but if you want to cut this card, it is an optional cut. And then we're running 2 Noctivision, once again just a fantastic extender in this deck, an extender on its own as well as a draw in order to get into our combo pieces. Very, very useful card. Then we're running one Remus and one Tempest. These 2 cards are here because they're kind of good on their own. Obviously, you can use Tempest alongside a card like Dragon Shrine in order to extend, and Remus searches Dragon Ravine, but these 2 cards here are primarily used with our small world in order to ensure that we can banish a dragon in order to search any other dragon. Then we are running one double Distributor Dragon. This card is used in order to search our Rapid Trigger. We go into our Romulus, we search our Dragon Ravine sends our Dual Wheel Dragon searches Rapid Trigger. However, this card also has a very good on-field effect. We can tribute it and then target 2 rocket monsters in our graveyard with different names and special summon them. So this is actually a good extender on its own alongside a card like Monster Reborn. And for the remainder of our monsters, we are playing our combo pieces in order to pull off our FTK. We do have to play one more Red Eyes monster than our previous build, so we are running 2 Red Eyes Toons, 1 Soul, and once again, 1 Speed Burst Dragon. The reason that we have to play one more than our previous build is because we use one of our Toon Dragons as material. In order to pull off this FTK, you do use the effect of Heavenly Spheres in order to tribute self and summon your Red Eye Soul on the opponent's turn in order to get that extra damage in. As a result, we are not using Soul as a material, but instead a card to summon from deck. So that's why we need to run 2 Red Eyes monsters as opposed to 1. For our spells, we're running triple Shrine, triple Chaos Space, triple Quick Launch, and triple Small World. These are pretty self-explanatory. They're all consistency cards and extenders. Small World and Shrine in particular assist in getting to a Black Metal Dragon, which is probably the most important card for you to see in this deck, as Black Metal Dragon gets you into Red Eyes Burn, and aside from Black Metal Dragon, you don't have a lot of ways to search it. Then we are running 2 Dragon Ravine. We're running 2, so if we start with 1, we can still search the other off of either our Romulus or a potential Remus in hand. Then we're running triple Rites of Armesia. I opted to run triple of this card in the main deck because we are running 60 and we want to see it. as opposed to running like 2 of this and then 1 Called by the Grave, because this card is just a kind of fantastic extender on its own. Even if we aren't using it to negate a potential hand trap, it is still 2 monsters on board for a potential Yugioh. Then obviously we're running the Dracoback Rider and the Journey of Destiny to go alongside that. For our 1-ofs, for combo pieces here, we are running 1 Boot Sector Launch and 1 Basil Rose Shot. These are necessary, obviously they're combo pieces. Then for our just generically good 1-ofs, we're playing 1 for 1, Foolish Burial, and Monster Reborn. As I mentioned before, Monster Reborn has a lot of synergy in this deck, as you want to send your double Distributor Dragon to the graveyard off of our Dragon Ravine in order to set up your combo, but you don't need to banish this card immediately to start the rapid trigger. You can use Monster Reborn to bring it back, and then use this in order to summon 2 rockets from grave. So it's a good way to get to 2 pieces off of just 1 card here. Now for the remainder of the cards, we are just running necessary pieces for our FTK here. We're running Red Eyes Fusion, Rapid Trigger, and Red Eyes Burn. Now for our extra deck here, we are running 2 fusion monsters this time. We're running Meteor Black Comet Dragon and Borreload Furious Dragon. These cards are necessary to pull off our FTK. In order to use our FTK in this deck, we're using Rapid Trigger and fusing our Meteor Black Comet Dragon with our Red Eye Soul. Rapid Trigger destroys our monsters when it's using them as material, and as a result, it allows us to trigger our Red Eyes Burn in order to deal the remaining 3,500 and win the game. So, Borreload Furious Dragon is our chosen fusion material for this play, because it's a little bit more high utility than a card like Starving Venom in terms of this card being on board and solving problems. For our synchros, we're running Baroness de Fleur, Savage Dragon, and Shooting Riser Dragon. Same reason as the last deck. We're just using these as negates, and we're using this as a combo piece. For our links, we're running Boral Sword Dragon and double Yugioh. You don't need as many Yugiohs in this deck, and 3 is a little bit too much. You're using up too many resources, so 2 works out perfectly, and Boral Sword is for going second and just OTKing. Then we're using our combo pieces here. We're using Crystron Halqifibrax, Romulus, and Anaconda. Now we are running 2 Heavenly Spheres here. This is just so that we can make the first one. If our opponent Nibiru's us, we can continue playing by getting a dragon from deck, and then just make a second one. Additionally, if we go first, and we aren't able to pull off the FTK, we still have a second one ready to go, but really you could cut the second one for something else. This extra deck is a little bit more flexible than the previous one was. And then for our link ones, we're running Pisty and Striker Dragon. These are very self-explanatory. Now down here at the bottom, I have a few other options. Our extra deck is a little bit more versatile, so we can run a few different cards. The first really good option here is Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. It's the exact same required material to pull off the FTK as Borreload Furious Dragon, but Starving Venom has more utility if we use Super Poly in our side deck. If we're using Super Poly, very easy, we can just switch out Borreload Furious Dragon and run Starving Venom. You could also theoretically run a third Yugioh the Skull Dread, but like, I wouldn't recommend it. You could also fit in another Called by the Grave, Roxy Rose, Exploder Rocket Dragon, or even Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. It's a little bricky in my opinion. I don't know if I really want to run Dragoon in this build, but it is an option. You also have the option of running Instant Fusion or our Ready Fusion in order to have an additional extender. That is pretty much it for this build, so let's go ahead and head on to the next one. Now for our last deck list, you need some combination of the following cards in order to FTK your opponent. However, this list is by far the weakest out of the 3. I'm only showing this list in case Verte gets banned. If Verte doesn't get banned, use one of the other 2 lists. If it does, this is probably your best option. Unfortunately, this list, however, just is not that consistent. It is far brickier because we are relying on Red Eyes Fusion as our only summon for the turn. And as a result, we're using a large amount of spell cards in order to search and draw through our deck in order to get to the pieces to FTK our opponent or kill them during the draw phase. The one nice thing about this deck, however, it's the most likely to actually kill the opponent on your turn going first rather than killing them during the draw phase. So at least this deck has that to its advantage. However, like I said, it is by far the most inconsistent, and that largely comes from the fact that we are running so many individual pieces that on their own just aren't that great. So to start things off, we're running 2 actual Red Eyes Black Dragons, triple Tune, and then 2 Red Eyes Soul. As you can see, we are running a lot of like actual Red Eyes because we are using these in combination with cards like Sacred Sword of 7 Stars, Allure of Darkness, and cards of the Red Stone in order to draw into our deck. For our other monsters, we are running 2 Mana Dragon. Now you could cut this down to 1. This is only here to be used as your fusion material with Meteor Black Comet Dragon in order to get to your FTK. I'm using 2 just so you don't like banish it with Allure of Darkness and then proceed to be incapable of playing, but in theory you could cut this down to 1, it might make the deck more consistent. And then I'm also playing 1 Dark Magician, just because this deck fails to FTK a lot. So if you have Red Eyes Dark Dragoon as an option here, you can just go ahead and go into this, and then hope that your opponent can't play through it. Now for our other cards here, we are running 1 Albion, 1 Branded in High Spirits, and 1 Paradise Branded. This is a really cool little engine that you can play. This card individually allows you to send one of these 2 cards in order to set this on the bottom of the deck and draw a card. This card will let you send a monster, any of the monsters in this deck actually, and then you are able to send Albion and then search this card and then, proceed to draw 1 as well. And Paradise and Branded makes it to where your fusions can't really be stopped by your opponent, and then it proceeds to once again search Albion, so any of these cards have the potential to be a draw in the deck. Very neat little engine that you can play here. Now for our other Red Eyes cards, we are running triple Red Eyes Fusion, triple Inferno Fire Blast, and triple Insight. These are necessary, and you do need to play 3 of each. For our other 3 ofs, we are running triple Allure of Darkness and triple Tune Table of Contents. Now, Tune Table of Contents is actually why we're getting away with playing so few Red Eyes in the deck. We are using Tune Table of Contents to search Tune Table of Contents, to search Tune Table of Contents, to search Tune Bookmark, and then search our Red Eyes Tune Dragon. We don't want to be starting the game with too many Red Eyes in hand. It's a very easy way for this deck to brick. So the ability to go ahead and just turn one of these into like 4 cards out of the deck and then eliminate the potential to draw into too many Red Eyes makes the deck a lot more consistent as you start to draw more cards. We are also running 1 Into the Void, as it is simply just a draw 1 in this deck. For our other draw cards, we are running triple Sacred Sword of 7 Stars, triple cards of Red Stone, and triple Perform a Pop-Up. These are so we can get rid of any of our level 7s and then draw a card, and Perform a Pop-Up is probably the best individual draw card in this deck. However, it is limited to once per turn. All 3 of these are actually, which is a little bit unfortunate and part of the way that this deck bricks, but Perform a Pop-Up is one of them that you really want to see because you can send any cards from your hand in order to draw. We are also running a very, very small Sky Striker engine. We are running 1 Eagle Booster and 1 Engage. Engage is just here because if we see Tune Table of Contents, this is a +1. And then we can use this in combination with Perform a Pop-Up to send, say, our Eagle Booster in order to dig even further through our deck without hard minusing ourselves. Additionally, Eagle Booster isn't terrible on its own in this deck because if our opponent tries to hand trap our Meteor Black Comet Dragon, we simply just summon it to our extra monster zone and protect it with Eagle Booster. The last cards we are playing are 1 copy of Serial Spell and 1 Red Eye Spirit as potential cards to enable our FTK. Initially, I was playing more copies of Serial Spell in this deck, however I cut it to 1 because I found myself bricking on it. It's a good card in order to pull off your FTK, but it's not a card that you can see multiple of. Now, for our extra deck, we are running 1 Chimera Tech Mega Fleet and 1 Mechaba. Really, the only card that matters in this deck is Meteor Black Comet Dragon, Dragoons, Albion, and our Dark Magician. These matter because obviously you need the Meteor Black Comet Dragon to FTK your opponent. Dragoons is your backup plan, and you're using these in combination with Branded in High Spirit. Really, you only need to run one of them, but I'm running two anyway, just in case you can cycle your Branded in High Spirit. This does have an effect that adds it back to your hand, so there is a way to use Branded in High Spirit multiple times in this deck. However, it is unlikely. The entire rest of our extra deck here is just cards that we can use if our opponent is running the Dogmatica cards or cards that have high utility. So pretty much all of these are just for the Dogmatica cards so that we have something that we can gain off of their effects, or their cards like Chimera Tech Mega Fleet or Chimera Tech Fortress, which can be used if our opponent is playing Cyber Dragons, and then I'm running like Lingaribo in order to link off a potential Ibly if our opponent tries to Ibly us. Like I said, the entire rest of the extra deck is just cards that are largely unnecessary. Now for the rest of the cards down here on the bottom, they are just other potential options that you have to draw, or other potential options that you can play in the deck. So Dark World Dealings is probably the first thing that I would try and fit into the deck if I could figure out the room. It sucks that your opponent gets to draw a card and discard a card. However, it's probably the best generic not once per turn that the deck that the game offers right now, which is really unfortunate. If we get more draw cards, this version of the deck becomes a lot more consistent. But right now, the fact that we're like scrounging at the bottom for cards like Dark World Dealing is pretty abysmal. You could also play Multiple Serial Spell, but I already explained why that's not a great idea. Another good option is Triple Tactical Talents. This card can obviously be used as a draw too, but it's probably better as a side deck card because it's a little bit too reliant on your opponent. You could also play more Red Eyes, but I wouldn't recommend it. This card is also a really neat option. It does unfortunately make it to where you can't use the Branded engine, which I think is a much better way of playing, but like you can't really use this right now anyway because we don't have Paradise and Branded. So in the meantime, you could run this card and then just run a single Meteor Black Comet Dragon in your extra deck. So if you Red Eyes Fusion out the Meteor Black Comet Dragon early, and then you draw into this card just becomes a draw one, which, like I said, we're trying to get as many of those as possible. If you're wanting to play a little bit of a memeier deck, you can also run Cup of Ace. If you haven't ever read this card before, it's literally toss a coin. If you get heads, you draw two. If you get tails, your opponent draws two. Very dice rolly. We are also using Foolish Burial of Goods and Metal Foes Fusion as possible options. I don't know if there's another card you can really play with Foolish Burial of Goods, but if there's another card that could also net you like a good +1, this could be a good option alongside like Dark World Dealings, but I really don't know. You could also use Magical Springs in the side deck. However, that's really dependent on your opponent. You also have the same argument for Phantasme. One option that I do really think is good is Heat Wave. Heat Wave just sort of ends. You activate it at the start of main phase 1. Neither player can normal or special summon. So if you're going first, you can activate this card, essentially end your turn, end your opponent's turn, and then come back to you. So it's a really slow +1, but technically it's you could use it as a draw card if your opponent's playing something that is really reliant on their normal summons and special summons. But like I said, that's probably a little bit better in the side deck because it's very reliant on your opponent. I would also recommend siding something like Forbidden Droplets just for going second. Really good option. You could also use this card in combination with something like Red Eyes Dark Dragoons in order to OTK your opponent just through its effect. You also can run Called by the Grave. However, I don't think Called by the Grave is necessary in this build aside from stopping something like Droll, because you not only have Eagle Booster, you also have Paradise Branded in order to negate the effects. But that is pretty much it in terms of these builds. I know it was a lot. I came up with 3 whole builds. I wanted to show all of them because I think they all sort of have their merits. If you're trying to build this, I think you could use one of these 3 decks as sort of a base in order to make a very effective FTK out of the new card, Red Eyes Soul. If you could leave me a like, comment on the video, something like that, just to help me out. Obviously, it was a lot of work coming up with 3 whole functioning deck lists, just for one video. But thank you very much for watching if you got this far. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked what you saw, consider commenting, or subscribing. It really helps the channel grow, and I know I appreciate it.